Oh, yes, we got Robin Uttappa.
How are you, man?
Good evening, my friend. How are you?
Thanks. How's it going?
All well over here. How's the little one?
Good.
Neil
He
Nolan?
is extremely good. He's very fine, keeping us busy, and we don't even know how the days are going, mate.
I would expect him to, given that I did see him on the other interview that you did, and he did seem quite a handful, but incredibly adorable as well, as I was telling you.
Thanks, man. He's good. He's good fun, man. He's a good kid. He's not too hard to handle, and in general, a very happy child. So he's been pretty easy. He's in this difficult time where he hasn't been able to meet his friends and all of that.
Right.
He's still kept his sanity about himself. He finds different things to do. He plays different sports. So he wakes up and he plays basketball.
Right.
Then he goes about playing maybe cricket or tennis a little bit. Then he's got a scooter at home which he rides around. So he looks forward to the weekends because what we've done is we've limited his screen time to only Friday and Saturday.
Right.
So he looks forward to Friday.
Right.
So Friday is when he can watch what he wants to watch on television. So he looks forward to Friday a lot. So he keeps asking me every day, today Friday? Friday? TV? Friday? Oh, Thursday, 2 more days to go. Or it's Wednesday, 2 more days to go. Or, it's Monday, you have a long time before you can watch TV again. So it's good fun.
Just to go back to your own childhood, Robin, you've had your own struggles with weight issues over different years, and of course you've become this lean and mean fitness machine eventually. But how hard was that to grapple with as a youngster growing up, as a youngster who's also pursuing sport?
Well, it's quite challenging, man. I think as a kid, one of the things that maybe stunted my growth a little bit was the fact that I went through epilepsy and
Right.
I had to take medication for that, which kind of altered my It alters with your hormones quite a bit when you have to deal with serious epilepsy. So, between the age of 11 and 13 and a half, I was taking these steroids that were actually playing a little bit of a havoc with my hormones in my system. So, I think that kind of took a
Right.
and it kind of altered the way I grew up, and it's something that I had to deal with. I was anyway a strong guy, but then the fact that I put on
Right.
maybe at different times people maybe even question my legality of my age, because I suddenly seem bigger kids, and but not a lot of that I was going through epilepsy and was taking medication for it. But I think that was the thing that kind of was something I dealt with growing up. So for me, what I had to do is had to at a certain point pay attention to it, and had kind of it was like a monkey on my back that I needed to get rid of after a point in time, and it was getting to me emotionally because it also kind of stunted my height a little bit. When I look at myself, I know the fact that I've got really long limbs. My arms and my legs are pretty long, but I've got a pretty short torso in comparison to my limbs. So I think my height took a but having said that, I think it's something I've grown up. I've kind of dealt with. It's something that I've accepted, that this is something I have to keep working on from time to time, and I keep working on that. Yeah, and something that I know that I can't take for granted. And there are times that I keep bobbing between, putting on weight and losing weight, and I have to give it that time to kind of deal with it from time to time. And I go through it knowing that I have to do it, and mentally it keeps me sharp as well. I can't take myself
Right.
in time. There are times where I've had a very long season and I really want to switch off, and I know that when I switch off and if I let myself go, then I have to work doubly hard when I get back to training. So for me, oftentimes I take a break from the game, but I'm not taking a break physically. But I take a break from the game. I don't take a break physically, and so I have to make. I'm eating right. I'm not going overboard on say my my sweets that I quite enjoy. So these are the things that I have to do from time to time, which I've accepted and said, this is what I have to do. And there are times where I let myself go and I said, okay, these couple of weeks, I'm just actually going to let myself go and say, you know what, I'm going to eat what I want to eat. I want to, have fun, take completely, switch off mentally, physically, completely switch off. And then knowing fully well that once those 2 weeks get over, then I have to, I not only have to, get back to training, but I also have to lose maybe 3 or 4 kilos, So reality is
right.
there, so I kind of switch myself on, and that's why people see that up and down in the weight. And I've kind of reached a point where I've settled down into a sweet spot, and I don't allow myself to let go completely, but at the same time I also pay a lot of attention to my recovery and make sure that I'm healthy and I don't I'm disciplined with the way I eat even when I'm not playing the sport.
Fair enough. But also, I mean, given that your career spanned a number of years and you also started playing at a time when some of the greatest legends of Karnataka cricket like Kumble, Rahul Dravid, Venkatesh Prasad, Sunil Joshi, all these guys were around. And I remember this particular story where you had actually said that in an interview where you would be so scared of Venkatesh Prasad that rather than, throw the ball at him for the fear of the ball, going over his head, would actually just go and give the ball to Venki Prasad. So, what was the what was the time frame like for you? To be this young player ensconced amid all these legends.
So I got into the team when I got into the Karnataka first class team when I was 16 years old. I made my first class one day debut when I was 16. When I just turned 16, and I replaced the captain at that point. So the captain of the team, J. Arun Kumar. Jack was the captain.
Yeah.
I replaced Jack. And Jack was the leader of the group for a while. And he's someone who's achieved so much for Karnataka and has done a lot for Karnataka, as not just as a coach but also as a player. I replaced him. I think he was maybe about 28, 29 at that point. I was obviously received with a lot of animosity because everybody were of that age, so they were all looking out for each other. So for a young un to come into the team, obviously they were all very tight. It was a tightly knit group. But when I came in and I performed well, I was welcomed into the team in a big way. But I still had to earn my stripes. I had to make sure that I was, I had to grow myself to that caliber. So the kind of standards that was set in the Karnataka team when Venki was playing, when Sunil Joshi was playing, Dr. Ganesh was Jack, Sujit Somasundar, Barrington Roland, all of these guys, they set very high within the group. So it became, very, obvious for me that I have to, I have to make sure, I have to get up to that standard, and I have to earn their respect, right? And for a 15-year-old, it was quite scary. It was quite scary for me, to be very honest. And I was intimidated because one is I looked up to all of them, right? And the fact that I had to earn their stripes made me feel a little bit scared. And so there were a couple of instances where I was disciplined by Venki. Since later on, Venki and I have become very good friends after that. But Venki disciplined me early on in my career, and I had to, there was a point where I was pretty scared of him, and then it was during that phase I was scared of throwing the ball back to Venki, and I just felt it was more easier for me because as a 15-year-old, when you're operating from fear, when you're 16 years old, you're operating from fear, then you more often than not are not going to do things right. I think not just for a 15 or 16-year-old. I think for anyone, when they operate from a position of fear, they're not going to do things very well. You're always going to fall short. So I just found it easier to run up to from mid-off to run up to Venki, put the ball in his hand, and then come back to mid-off. And I was young, so I was willing to do the work of running up to him and coming back. But Venki is a fantastic human being. I've played under him. In fact, it was under him that I was able to make a comeback into the Indian team after I first got dropped. So I got selected in the Indian team. I played 3 one-dayers. After my debut, I played a couple more one-dayers, and then I got cut from the team. Then I had to make a comeback into the Indian team. Venki was the coach of the Ranji Trophy team by that point in time, and so
Right.
Venki found an amazing way to get the best out of players, and he certainly got the best out of me. And I ended up scoring about 900 odd runs in Ranji Trophy, and made a comeback into the Indian team, and went on to play the World Cup and the T20 World Cup and all of that. So
Yep.
I have to give credit to Venki for the way he operated as a coach, and I think even as a player, made me understand how valuable it is to be able to play first class cricket, and what it takes to play first class cricket. And I think as a youngster, if I perceived that those lessons that were taught to me the hard way in a different manner, it would have probably served
Right.
me better in those initial years.
What are your earliest memories of your interactions with Rahul Dravid? Because you eventually also went on to make your international debut alongside him. You even got to open the batting alongside him. So, what's your first memories of Rahul Dravid, and what are your memories of Dravid during your international debut?
With Rahul Bhai, my first memory of him with him is when I was, I think, about 11 or 12 years old. I was in school, and he had come to school. We were from the same school, so he had come to school for a prize distribution ceremony for cricketers and some sports event. And he was there. That was my first interaction with him, and that's the first time I met him. And I always looked up to him, and always thought that I would love to play alongside him, as he played for on and on for India. But I also realized growing up that our styles of play were very different. But I really valued the way he played, and I saw the importance of the way he played in his initial years, And I didn't interact with him a lot when I played first class cricket, but I think my initial interaction with Rahul Bhai came when I first played for India, and he was the captain of the Indian side. And Rahul Bhai is itself in general a very intense person. I think post his career he's become a lot more relaxed, but someone who happy to have a conversation about cricket. When I've played first class cricket with him in Duleep Trophy, when I played first class cricket with him at that point in time, I played first class cricket say in Duleep Trophy or the other trophy. It was in those, or the Challenger Trophy. Those are the tournaments that I had interactions with Rahul Bhai. But even there, Rahul Bhai was always in his zone. And I was also someone who looked up to him so much. I felt like I could watch and learn a lot more than actually interact with him. I was probably a little shy, and we as youngsters at that point in time didn't have the kind of exposure that today people and youngsters and younger cricketers have. With the onset of social media, there's so much exposure, and people feel, they were demigods to us. Yeah, Rahul Dravid and Sachin Tendulkar, Saurav Ganguly,
absolutely, yeah.
Lakshman. Growing up, they were all demigods to us. To be able to be in the same room as them, forget playing with them itself was a dream. Yeah. So for us to be, we were just awestruck for the most part. The fact that we were in the same room as them. We would just sit and say, what can we sit down and watch and learn from these gentlemen? Because they have their work ethics were right up there. We would be the NCA or in the KSCA where the NCA is today, and we would watch Anil Kumble and Rahul Dravid and Joshi, and you'd see their work ethic, and you'd be right up there, man. And we example them. And when I played international cricket with Rahul Bhai, he was at a time when he was leading India at that point in time, and he was. You have to say, he was leading India at a precarious point in time in Indian cricket. It would have gone either way.
It was indeed, yeah.
He was also, again, at that point, an extremely, he was in general a very intense person when he was playing cricket, but he was even more intense as a captain. It was hard to have a conversation at that point in time, but because there was so much that he was dealing with. It was a very hard time, when I made my debut in India.
True.
We didn't know where the dust would settle, right? And I think
absolutely, yeah.
At that point, that captaincy at that point in time, better than Rahul Bhai, because he's so good at handling pressure, and he kind of did that the whole time. I don't know how much he enjoyed doing it, but he did it really well. So I would have to reach out to Rahul Bhai, as a youngster, and reach out to him, and I'll tell him, how can I practice better? What can I do to prepare myself better? Because a lot of times I would not be playing in the 11 at that point in time with the Indian team. I'd be sitting outside. So I would reach out to him and ask him what I should do, how I should prepare, what should I be doing at this point in time. whenever you asked him things, he was always someone who's always open to explaining, things and what he did as a youngster, and he didn't have to say much because he walked the talk. Arun. He would practice
Right.
and more than most people in the team at that point in time, right? Even though he was the captain of the team,
Very true.
set the example, and I just feel lucky and blessed to have played alongside and share the dressing room, rub shoulders, and interact and become friends with such legends of the game. Not just of Indian cricket, but
Yeah.
legends of the game, man.
Right. And also for you, I mean, as a youngster, 2007 was a rather seminal year, if I would put it that way. Again, you first experienced the lows of the World Cup in the Caribbean, and then you go back to win the World T20. So, could you describe what was the low point? I mean, after the World Cup, what was the feeling like, and then how did that change eventually after the World T20? Did you guys even see it coming at all?
Man, after the World Cup in West Indies, I honestly never thought I would play for India again. It was again a very precarious time in Indian cricket. When a team of that caliber fails in that competition, that everyone has been waiting to play for the last, and they tagged us as favorites, given the fact that in 2003 we'd gone to the finals and missed out, right? So we went in there as one of the championships in the World Cup, and of lifting the World Cup, and when we lost in the first round, common sense, who would you cut? The youngest guy in the block. You just say, let's get back to winning ways.
Yeah.
But the selectors at that point, kind of reposed faith in me and continued to keep me in the side, and we went to the World Cup, and we knew that we were a very young side, and for me, I had confidence going my way from the fact that I had done well in Oval, and then we won a game that we were unlikely to win, and then we lost the game in Lords, but I still played fairly well there in Lords. But having said that, the game once we got to South Africa, we just got to a place where we knew that we're a really young side, and we don't have stalwarts of Indian cricket at that point in time, and we didn't have Zach Bai, we didn't have I think Munaf wasn't there, if I'm not wrong. We didn't have.
You didn't have the triumvirate anyway. You didn't have Dravid,
we didn't have Dravid.
Sachin as well as Saurav for the World T20. Yeah.
Dada in the World Cup. So once we went there, we knew that we were a young side and we needed to go out there and do our best, and that's how we went.
Yeah.
And we took one game at a time. We just made sure we go out there and we play each game. We take one game at a time, play to the best of our ability, and once we did that, man, it just as we started playing well, the confidence started growing, and by the time we got to the quarterfinals, we just knew that if we can just go out there and play this quarterfinals well, and once we won the quarterfinals, we felt like, man, we're in with a chance. We're just 2 games away. So, and then we just stick to doing what we're doing well, and we were riding high on confidence because a lot of things went up. The way that our first game got washed out against Scotland. Then our second game, I think, against Pakistan, which is essentially our debuts in T20 cricket, went off was a humdinger for us, and that gave us a lot of confidence. Honestly, we lost the next one in New Zealand, but then we went on to win the next couple of ones against England and South Africa, and then and then we went on to play, I think, Australia and then Pakistan again. And then, for us, by the time we got to Australia, we felt like, we just have to play this game well. And the fact that UV is, Rohit played the way he played, DK fielded the way he fielded in, even though he was not playing in a game, he took a one-handed blinder of Graham Smith in gully of RP Singh both in that tournament. Gauti played so well for the most part in that tournament. Like someone is mentioning now, I think the bowl out was a big part of bringing momentum into the side.
Yeah.
Me playing my part, and then UV playing such an integral tournament. It was just complete. It was an absolute team effort, and then everyone just lifted everybody up. Everyone had confidence in each other. It was such a healthy dressing room, and for those 3 weeks, honest to God, Arun, there was not a single thing that was even felt negatively. Forget being said negatively.
Yeah.
not even a single negative feeling in that whole campaign. So I think we just built on all of that. We really enjoyed each other's company, each other's success, and we just said, we want to win, we want to play well, and we want to win. And we didn't understand the enormity of our achievement till we came back to India.
Yeah. Just a thing about the bowl out. I remember you were saying about how Venkatesh Prasad was the one who coaxed everyone into, practicing for the bowl out situation. Did it, in fact, require a lot of cajoling and coaxing while at the nets, while you guys trained? Or were the guys like all up for it?
It was a fun thing to do, man. It was something that was just, it was like the game. And we were like, batsman versus bowler. So that's always a thing, right? Batsman versus bowlers in any team sport is like in any cricket team. Batsmen versus bowlers is like today, if in any team, like including in my Kerala Ranji side today, football's played batsmen versus bowlers, and the bowlers can make fun of they beat them, the batsmen, and so it's always a good thing to do. So anything to do, you want to play teams within the team, it's always best to split out the bowlers, and then there's a lot of fun. So it was a fun thing to do. No one forced us. It didn't feel like it was forced, but it was just a fun thing to do. And the fact that we as batsmen were able to hit the stumps more than the bowlers was just fun. And then once you do it, you just felt confident about it, and we knew how to do it, and we did it. And for the most part, I think we did 3 or 4 times in practice, and I think batsmen kind of won more than the bowlers did at practice. So I think confidence was just running high amongst us batsmen. So came along, we just said, what. I think Virubai decided to do it. I went to MS and I said, I want to bowl, and I'm certain. And then he backed me. So it just went from there, and that was the whole beauty of that tournament. I think the fact that there's so much of confidence in each other, there's so much of trust and faith in each other that it really carried us through to the end. I think when you look at most championship winning teams, you see that, right? You see that faith and trust in every member of that team. And I think that's the fun thing about it, the great thing about winning championships. And
of course, the hat tip celebration was in fact spontaneous at that point of time. But given the kind of cult status that it eventually achieved, did you have the temptation to make that a trademark of sort every time you picked up a catch or did something special on the field?
Well, yeah, as in I do it, and I used to do it before when I used to get hundreds. When I got hundreds, but then tip off my hat or just take a bow. That's something I used to do. So I just thought, if I hit, when I hit the stump, I was thinking, how am I going to celebrate? I was like, I'm going to celebrate like this and be nice. So I did it in one direction, and when I did it in one direction, the kind of applause and ovation that I got was amazing. So I said, let me go the other way, and I went the other way. It was just got better, and so I just said, let me go all around, and then I just went all around. And not bad for a thing that at that point in time in the world for it to go viral. When there was nothing.
Viral. Yeah.
Like you said rightly, I think it became like something little of a cult status. I think after that. So every time I meet someone or anyone who's ever seen me play cricket, always talk about it. So it's a very exciting time. It's a very fond memory and something that I'm truly grateful for that I've been able to experience.
Absolutely. And my first memories, at least, of your friendship with Dhoni was that time when I vaguely remember seeing a photograph of the both of you in your Coorg plantation at some point. So at what point did this friendship of yours with MS blossom? Did that something that did it predate the World T20, the World Cup, or was it something that happened during the 2007 period? And could you shed some light on the kind of relationship you guys have shared over the years?
I think it predated the World Cup. I think it back to when I first
here.
MS was a part of the side, and then when we went to West Indies, I think the first time we went to West Indies, MS was with the Indian team. We had a one-day series against West Indies, and then we went there. We lost the one-day series, but that's when MS and I and RP Singh and Sureshi were all hung out together because we were all the young, and we got really clear. And so every time we played cricket together, we always hung out with each other. We ate meals together. So it was one little family of brothers who just were always together. And to this day, that camaraderie, that brotherhood still remains. We don't necessarily have to be in touch for long.
Yeah.
When we are in touch, the affection is very apparent. The love, the affection, the respect is there, and we really enjoy each other's company. Yeah? And today, I think that camaraderie today, has grown into our families as well, and the vibes in the families are friends now. And, we all get on, and it's RP, Munaf,
Right.
Irfan, all of us. Been thick from then. We're still thick, and I think distance hasn't made a difference in all of that.
Did you spot signs of leadership, sparks of the kind of captain that MS would eventually become down the years, even back then?
No, we knew MS had a certain way of functioning,
Right.
And we knew MS would function in a certain way, and we never interfered with the way he functioned as an athlete. So when he was named captain, we knew that MS is going to do things his way, and we never questioned anything, and we were really comfortable. It never changed our relationship, our equation with him in any way, shape, or form. We were just still close, and we still spent time together. He still was just chilled out. We knew that he would do what he decided best, and he would always do things in the best interest of the team. He was always that kind of a person. He was always a human being. But we knew that MS is someone who processed a lot of things internally. So we kind of knew that. So when he made a decision, we didn't question it. We kind of trusted it, and we said, you know what, it's important for us to back the choices that the captain makes in the best interest of the team. We want to back it with the right kind of energy as a player within the group, and so we made sure we did that as a group. And the results are there to see when a whole team, when everyone within the group, not just the playing 11, not just the 15, but even the support staff, are all working in one direction in the best interest of the team, then without a choice matter, you will get results going your way.
Absolutely. And also,
which is what you see in most championship winning sides. You look at I've been a part of a few championship winning teams, and I know for a fact that when Karnataka won the trebles twice in a year, when KKR won, when you look at CSK, look at MI winning, you can tell that everyone's working in one direction, and that's when that wins. No one's moving in different directions. Everything is moving in one direction, and that's what brings you victory. Irrespective of whether you agree, and it's normal for there to be disagreements.
True.
Not aligning with what the captain is saying or anything of that sort. But when you actually
need to pull together,
that energy together, whether you agree or don't agree, and what he's doing it in his perception, this is the best. This is doing it in the best interest of the team. Let me just back this with my best energy. Then you see that everything in the long run kind of works out for the best. It just pans out the best way.
Right, and one of the things that's also very closely associated with you is that famous walk down and hoik that you play, and you're also called the walking assassin for a really long period of time. When do you think that nickname stuck? And is it also true that you did in fact get inspired by Matthew Hayden to play that kind of shot?
That actually from Matthew Hayden. For me, I was not like I said earlier, I wasn't playing in when we went tour of England and Wales. I wasn't a part of the playing 11 for the most part of that. So I would spend a lot of time in the nets, and I knew that I would be, we knew a little bit that the team that would be going for the T20 World Cup. So I said, what can I do to kind of bring out, because I'm batting really well. What can I do to kind of probably prong a surprise on the bowlers? And I started thinking of guys who really dominated attacks. Matthew Hayden is someone who's right on top of that list. Someone who dominated bowling attacks, and I resonated with that at that point in time, and for me that's where it kind of rooted from, because I used to see him walk down, but I would see him take a step down and then kind of play the shot. So for me, I felt if I could do, bowlers for the most part won't anticipate it. So I started doing that, and then when I started getting a lot of success with it to the faster to clear bowlers in the nets, and I was able to do it to a few of the fast bowlers in the nets, and and once I was able to do that, I had a lot of confidence, and kind of just took that to the game, and it came off in that Oval game. I was lucky, but
Yeah.
it came off in that Oval game for me, and once it came off in the Oval game, I knew that not only will I be able to clear the infield, but I will be able to scoop it over by walking down. And I think it was after the World Cup that name kind of stuck.
Right. Absolutely. And but during the CB series in 2008, something else was also happening, wasn't it? I mean, Andrew Simons got stuck into you, and Matthew Hayden also joined in, and both these guys was just sledging you right, left, and center. So how did you react back then? Did you just laugh it off, or were you tempted to give it back?
No, I always gave it back. Yeah.
Right. Well played, Robbie.
So at that point, I always gave it back, and I think it stayed in that. I think it started at the T20 World Cup, and
Right.
I think it was side that of India that they had never experienced before, and kind of shook them up a little bit. So when they finished the World Cup, because they were favorites of winning that World Cup in South Africa. So when they finished the World Cup, they had a 5-match series against Australia in India, and we had a one-off T20 as well. So in that game, I think in the World Cup, Matthew Hayden was Matthew Hayden and Andrew Simons were sledging us, and I didn't think they anticipated us retaliating, and we actually retaliated,
Right.
and not just while we were batting, but also while we were fielding, we were sledging, and I don't think at that point anyone was anticipated Indians to kind of sledge,
Was that a particularly clever sledge?
I don't want to go into details. we got into it, and we kind of even the not so aggressive, the demure Adam Gilchrist got riled up a little bit, and someone who kept his calm about for the most times, unlike when he was batting. But as far as character goes, he's a pretty calm bloke, but even he kind of found it like, this is weird for Indians. And then when he came back to India, then the sledging got pretty obvious. We didn't limit it to anyone. We didn't hold back with as far as anyone was concerned. We sledged everybody, and I'm pretty clear with the way I speak, so they would pretty much understand everything. And for some time, I took the onus on myself to kind of take the attack to them. It was good fun, yeah. While it lasted, it was good fun, and we lost that one-day series to Australia here, but we won the one-off T20. And then we went to Australia and beat Australia, and we beat them 2-0 in the 3-match final.
Yeah.
And historic is in itself, and I think that's when they realized that India is going to be a force to reckon with from here on in. I think that was probably a turning point in world cricket for teams like Australia and the dominant teams at that point.